Hello my friends and welcome. We have some of the good news coming from the front lines. Ukraine advanced towards Sichneva village. This village is right at the border between Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk regions, but on territory of Dnipropetrovsk. So again it shows that Russia is unable to control their territorial gains, they are unable to defend those. If Ukraine sends some of the reinforcements, Ukraine in most of the cases is successful. Well, at the same time you see this Russian attack vector towards Nova Alexeyevka, but it was already cut by Ukraine. There are numerous of the drones which Ukrainian army used, and one more mid-wave attack of Russians was just zeroed. And let's go to interactive map from the Myco73 analytic. The link for his media, for his X or Twitter, it's better to say, is in the video description just below. And let me zoom out to show you where it happened. So you see lots of the Ukrainian flags are out there. And with the new reinforcements, Ukraine started to work a lot with FPV drones, but at the same time Russians use aviation gliding bombs. So it's the southeast part of Ukraine, you see, yeah, Zaporizhia is over here, and in this direction Russians try to break through towards Pokrovsk. But you see that it's not going according to plan for them with the Ukrainian new counteroffensive operation. And why do I like this interactive map? Just want to show you. So you click on the flag and immediately you have the link with original source of this information, geolocated, confirmed, with lots of the videos shown. Here we have even the GoPro video from our guys. Very interesting, but I cannot show you on YouTube this stuff. Sometimes I make the reviews from action cameras, drone cameras, especially for members and Patreon supporters. I do it separately because if I show it here, my videos will get restricted. So it's the special content and I do it not for everyone. Usually videos are restricted with that. I hope you understand, my friends. But on Telegram, if I see those videos, I usually repost them. Okay, so you may join my Telegram. It's for free and there I post lots of the information. But my reviews, reactions are separate for members and Patreon supporters. So here you can see our guys with the flag, and it's not the only place where they put this flag. So Sichneva is being fully liberated, I would say, by Ukrainian infantry forces. The presence of Ukrainian army is being geolocated, confirmed. So Osint Analytics, they do very good stuff in analyzing all of those images. And we're speaking about 141st Separate Motorized Brigade. Nice. So if you click those flags, they basically refer to the same video that was posted. This is the compilation, yeah, I see it already, how our guys were storming buildings and the drone images. So it's pretty much evident that the Ukrainian army took this part under control, but still it's like in a gray area, because we are not sure, maybe Russians have some forces nearby. In some of those tree lines, we'll see. But the Ukrainian army now has the opportunity to cut Russian supplies through this road. It is very near, so Russians will be maybe trapped in this forest line or something, and all of their attempts to go to Novoselivka, well, they are failed already, but there will be no perspective for them if Ukraine controls Sichneva. And by the way, about Novoselivka and all of those drones, let's check out the recent information. So this is the new video that was published. It shows Ukrainian drone operation on some of the ruined buildings out there, and Russian forces, they tried to hide, but they were reached by Ukrainian drones. Awesome. As you see, there were multiple of the attacks, so the presence of the Russian army is under the question here, because they suffer a lot. That's why this village was put in a gray area. Well, the only advantage Russian army has is in using aviation gliding bombs. They have lots of those. Yeah, Ukraine also has gliding bombs, but not as devastative as Russia has. Ukraine is using those occasionally, precisely, but Russians, they bomb hell out of Ukrainian positions, as you see, judging on those images from entire front lines. And for example, if we click on this one, we'll see that there are multiple of the aviation strikes on Ukrainian positions. So Russians, they learned on NATO technologies with those gliding modules, and yeah, basically they have airplanes to drop those from the very far distance, and Ukraine is unable to use Patriot systems close to the front lines because Russia also has surveillance drones and Iskander. So then they find Patriot systems, they may kaput those. Like it happened already before, as far as I remember, it was in 2023, then Ukraine lost 2 or 3 launchers. together with 9 crew members who were perished. But before that, you might remember how Russia started to lose lots of the airplanes, mostly Sukhoi 34 fighter bombers, which mostly carried those gliding bombs. And because Ukraine doesn't have thousands of Patriots, and they are very needed also to protect Ukrainian cities, Ukraine cannot deploy them to protect front lines from those bombs, unfortunately, guys. And then this bomb flies towards terrain or some sort of the position, it totally destroys it. That's the biggest threat for Ukraine, even I would say more than Russian FPV drones. And Russia usually uses those aviation bombs to help infantry forces. So for example, here infantry advanced, the expansion of the gray area, and immediately Russian aviation used gliding bombs here. It means that Russia wants to get Alexeyevka under control to bypass Ukrainian positions and attack from behind, but Ukraine also has reinforcements in this direction. So this jump will not be an easy one for Russia, but they attempt to do it. Analyzing Russian bomb strikes, we may predict the next Russian move. And about Alexeyevka, the deep state military map source confirmed the presence of the Russian army there. Analytics say that Russians moved towards this village early morning, that there was thick fog. Very poor visibility, drones were not able to fly. Usually that weather is in October in Ukraine. It is kind of profitable for those small group attacks or sabotage operations. I think Ukraine also used weather in a recent advancement towards Sychneva village that I showed you right at the beginning of the video. Speaking about aviation strikes and other strikes, this map shows the locations of the kabooms in Pokrovsk-Dobropilya direction. So you might see where Ukraine concentrated the most of the strikes on Russian positions and where Russia continued to use aviation gliding bombs and artillery. It is evident that Russians want to cut Ukrainian positions in this region, and also they want to stop Ukrainian offensive from Dobropilya. It was not detected for a single day, I guess here several weeks, but nevertheless we have this map. And by the way, about Pokrovsk-Dobropilya, there Ukraine started to use vehicles, like for example tanks, and Russia also attacked with armored vehicles. For example, recently this one was perished. We have the video confirmation, it was chased and kaboomed. Sorry, I'm jumping from one part of the screen to another, but it's better to keep consistent, and up left corner I think it's better. So you may say that Ukraine also has losses not far away from Novy Donbass, also Novoshakhova and Dorozhne. This one is T-72 tank, probably it was stuck on the railroads and was finished later on by FPV drones. In this case, crew evacuated. Actually it didn't stack, it was hit just on the railroads. It is good that it didn't detonate, because the shells in T-72 tank, they're all around the crew. So the chance for those shells to ignite and kaboom is very, very high. Especially the drone hits between the tank turret and the tank base. And Novy Donbass, I would say it's quite far away from Russian-controlled territory, but nevertheless Russians continue to use their FPV drones. What we have here, well, it was hit on the way. A single drone was not enough to stop this tank, I guess it's T-64. But later on, unfortunately, it was perished. Here it's hard to tell whether a crew was capable to evacuate the tank, at least judging on this video. And the third tank is in Novoshakhova. It was stopped and also hit by FPV drones. I think it's the same compilation that I showed you before, geolocated position. So what happened? Ukraine went to Novoshakhova and Nikhanorivka and decided to send reinforcements with armored vehicles and tanks. For now mostly tanks. But Russians probably were waiting for this move, and they kaputted 3 of the Ukrainian tanks for the last couple of days. So I would say that for Ukrainians better not to counterattack with those significant forces. All of the vehicles are very well spotted. It's better to leave it like it is for now, because after all, Russian forces in Kucherev Yar, for example, and between Shakhova and Novoshakhova are being encircled. It's not that good to have those Russian enclaves over here, but it's better not to waste precious resources of crew and vehicles. It reminds me a little Russian strategy, then they send their vehicles. By the way, recently they did it once again. Yeah, one more convoy of Russian vehicles was kaputted in this direction. Exactly as Ukrainian army in Pokrovsk-Dobropilya direction that I showed you before, Russians tried to send backup and attack from Yablunivka using this highway, or it's better to say just a road, it's not a highway. It is a very important Konstantinivka direction, and you see that all of the Russian vehicles here are being kaputted, and let's check out the original news about it. So here we have all of the Russian vehicles, mostly infantry carrying vehicles. In the front, as usual, there is the tank. So standard Russian tactics, but after all, it's quite rare to see those kind of the movements from the Russian army or from the Ukrainian one, because any sort of the vehicles within the drone range is a good prey, very easy prey for FPV drones. Yeah, I was right about the leading vehicle. You can see it is the Russian T-72 tank with the mining plug. Yes, the drone armor protection, it helps, but Ukraine uses lots of the drones, so 1 in 3, for example, as usual, hits the tank hard, stopping the vehicle. So the tank was hit, but continued the movement, and you can see probably they start to generate smoke, or maybe something went completely wrong with the engine. It looks like that with this one the tank was stopped and Ukraine started to operate on those vehicles. They jumped on the road. The road is in a very good conditions, so the maximum speed of those BMPs could be reached here, but drones fly after all faster. And here you can probably see that some of the vehicles have already been stopped, and this one, well, it had no way to go, and from what I see, 1, 2, 3 vehicles blocked the road. So this one stopped and also received the drone in the butt. Yeah, here we have the confirmation from the surveillance drone. And one more vehicle was also chased and kaputted right in the forward part. It was smoking later on, but continued the movement, and the second drone finished it off. And what is this? BMP-2 probably with the cannon. They decided to turn to the field, but were chased and finished. Yeah, the convoy was stopped entirely. Yeah, I haven't seen this one for a very, very long time. So according to our volunteer report, Sergei Sternenko, by the way, he collects lots of the funds for purchasing drones for Ukrainian army. Russians lost 5 of the tanks, 8 of the infantry fighting vehicles, and 2 BMDs. This is the landing vehicles, infantry carrying vehicles, and also 3 BMPs. Crazy. Well, judging on that video, there were definitely lots of the vehicles which were flatlined by Ukrainian defenders. The defense operation was carried out by Phoenix and SBU warriors, and also 93rd Separate Mechanized Brigade and Flying Skull Brigade. So he knows what he is speaking about because he delivers drones to those guys. And it is definitely a large-scale mechanized assault by Russians, which was stopped. Well, I thought that Russians stopped using those big convoys, but apparently it was just a break. They want to assault with those vehicles, but again and again they've been stopped by Ukrainian drones, so what's the purpose of those attacks? I'm out of clue. Still, Russian generals have no other strategy than to use midwaves. It is shocking, and also shocking that sometimes Ukraine follows the same scenario or similar one. I think those 3 tanks which Ukrainian army lost here, those were useless losses. I think so, it's my opinion, because they were kaputted on the way to reach Ukrainian positions. The same as here for Russians, but Russians lost way more of the vehicles. In Konstantinivka there are also losses for Ukrainian side. 1 tank was hit, and Russians have losses in Chasiv Yar itself. They say they control Chasiv Yar, but how can you control it if you have losses in this settlement? So we have this update: infantry carrying vehicle was hit and geolocated at the spot. 2 of them were hit. Yes, 2 MTLBs entered Chasiv Yar, this settlement. They were spotted and later on kaputted, yes, 1 by 1. And those are the remains of the vehicle. Usually they carry lots of the infantry inside. Once again, Ukraine hunted TOS-1A Solntsepek. It is a very capable artillery system, mostly because of the thermobaro type of the shells. If it hits somewhere, it vanishes everything. And you cannot hide from it in a trench or something. No, it's like a flamethrower. A remote one, but it has its own big disadvantage. kind of the short range of operation, up to 14 kilometers, not more, for precise strike. That's why Russians have to use it very close to the front lines, within the range of Ukrainian FPV drones. And as you see on this video, it didn't work well for Russians. Solntsepek was kaboomed. Since there was no detonation of the shells, it seems like Russians were coming back from the mission. But Ukrainian drones were fast enough to chase this vehicle. And we have some compilation of the videos from 44th Artillery Brigade of Ukrainian Army. They operate in unknown location and they also harm Russian artillery. For example, here some of the drone images confirming some of the strikes on Russian positions. Russians, as always, try to hide their units in the forest lines, but they are spotted usually by Ukrainian surveillance drones, and later on artillery of Ukraine kapoots the Russian artillery. This video was just released and OSINT Analytics will analyze it for geolocation. And one more unique video was presented with this rare Russian Zemlyadelia remote mining system that was kapooted by Ukrainian FPV drones, so let's watch this video. It is interesting that the job was done by waiting FPV drones, so here is clearly a Zemlyadelia system. You can see those packs of the mines behind, and the forward part of the track was kaboomed. Ukraine started to operate with those kind of the waiting FPV drones, so they wait on the road and then take off, then they see their prey. For example, here is Niva vehicle, but Zemlyadelia system is way more expensive than this Niva. Again, check out my Telegram, there I post more of this stuff. Alright, the rest parts of the front lines are more or less stable. Russians are unable to advance to Kupiansk, and Ukraine, from the information I have, intensified the counteroffensive actions in Alexeyevka and in Konstantinovka, so probably in the coming days we're gonna receive some of the good news from Sumy region. Well, I just hope it will be like that. In the rest of the regions, well, there was the light advancement of the Russian army in Syria's direction, but for now it's just a gray area expansion. From what I see, Russians slowed down on the front lines. The last months they were actually propelling faster than in October. Well, maybe after all weather plays its role. What the hell? Is it working? Really? From BMP they took it. It seems like, yeah, it could work maybe. What? I think after all it should work, because I don't see any logical thing why they put it over there on this Moskvich, very old vehicle. And it's on the front lines, yes, there are military guys walking around. Well, maybe it is just a reverse gear. If they fire, this Moskvich goes back. Is it effective? Well, absolutely not. They just welded this gun on top. It has the charging mechanism, and I don't know this term, but yeah, you can load the shells there after all. I would say so far from all of those Mad Max style vehicles, this one is the most brutal as for me. The Russian army standards, they are scary. And you see, Ukraine also put the same protection as Russia uses usually on this MRAP vehicle. This is Max Pro. Some of the cage, and you see lots and lots of the wires around, but of course it may stop Russian drones in this case. I remember how at first we were laughing on Russians, then they put those kind of the cages or hangars on their tanks, armored vehicles, but now Ukraine is using the same stuff because, after all, it is effective against drones, the most effective thing. The electronic warfare, sometimes it helps, sometimes not. Against fiber optic drones it doesn't help, so yeah, cages is the only solution. Oh, some of the drone flying in the Russian skies. It is kind of unusual drone, I would say. It looks like beaver, but it's not a beaver since there is absence of the forward horizontal stabilizer. It's the first time I see this kind of the air vehicle. It is not a big one, but it's pretty much fast. It is also equipped with a standard piston engine. Reportedly, it was filmed in the Belgorod region, and again, Russian interesting facilities are under attack. For example, this factory in Yekaterinburg that was producing the equipment for power stations, including sophisticated turbines. Yes, it's not Siemens or something, but still Russia is capable to produce turbines. but now maybe not any longer because it was the main facility for this kind of the production. As we know, Ukrainian drones are sometimes visiting Russian power plants, so Russia absolutely needs the spare parts for repairs. Well, in this case, spare parts are nowhere to take from. And we have the satellite images coming from Crimea. This is the Feodosia oil storage. You might see that here oil tanks were kaputted and they continue to burn in other place. Yeah, still some of the tanks are intact, but it's just a matter of time that Ukraine will aim them too. The thick smoke is coming from the place and the distance of the trail is roughly 12 kilometers. You may check out the wind direction. Yeah, judging on this image, Russia also lost some of the tanks in this northern area, and those two continue to burn. And here in the south too, so this is the map of the Russian tank losses in this facility. So most of the tanks were kaputted. And our military correspondent from the place also confirms the situation is smoky. Yeah, it's just a random Russian tourist. I'm just joking. It seems like he's happy. Well, me too. That's the pure happiness. Enjoy, enjoy. And media continue to write that Ukraine's hellfire is intensifying the Kremlin's fuel crisis. Definitely in many of the Russian regions there is the fuel crisis, plus in occupied territories like for example Crimea. And obviously with those strikes Ukraine creates extra load on the Russian budget. But will those strikes be decisive in this war? Well, I don't honestly think so. I don't think that Russians will stay completely out of fuel for their army. After all, they have refineries which Ukraine is unable to reach. Also, some of the partners of Russia continue to support Russia with fuel. Zelensky himself said about it openly, and Ukraine just cannot attack all of the Russian fuel logistics. So for army, BMPs, tanks, Russia will have enough fuel, especially right now that Russia uses those tanks just occasionally, and mostly fuel is needed for transportation, logistics, and for aviation. Yeah, after all, those strikes, they matter, but they're not decisive in this war. They just add something more. That's my opinion. I could be wrong about it, but I don't think that targeting just refineries will finish off Russian economy. It may harm it a lot, but not ruin. Alright, what we have here is 1-to-1 ratio model of Neptune missile. Long Neptune it is also called. Neptune-T, and from what I can see, probably this is the fuel tank here added, yeah, for extended range. The warhead is in the front, this is the engine and electronic control compartment, and here is probably a fuel tank. Interesting design, and it was just presented today, I guess, in Kiev. By the way, according to legacy media, Ukraine has already started to use Flamingo missiles on Russian refineries and not only. Oh, this is the Novovoronezh Russian nuclear power plant that was hit today. Well, not the reactor itself, but the cooling tower. As for me, it's kind of strange, but Russian propaganda doesn't accuse Ukraine for targeting nuclear power plant precisely or intentively. They immediately admitted that they used the electronic warfare to deflect trajectory of Ukrainian drones, and some of the drone debris, as they usually say, hit this kind of the cooling tower. And Ukraine also stated that nuclear infrastructure is not the target for Ukrainian drones, so at least here it's the common agreement they don't want to escalate in nuclear sphere, but Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant still stays without the main electrical supplyment. Russians say that they might connect it in the coming days. Alright, here we have kind of the unique video. Ukrainian GUR has released it. Those are the Ukrainian drones, Baba Yaga style drones, which are being mounted on the drone boats. There were several of the operations conducted using those, and the recent one, I guess it happened this summer, where those drones were sent close to Crimea. And let's watch this one. Okay, this is Starlink antenna. I immediately recognized that one. And yeah, that's the boat going somewhere. Awesome. It was presented on this conference, yeah. So Baba Yaga is a very big drone. It is capable to carry some of the mortar shells, kind of big shells, at least I think 120mm caliber, sometimes 80mm, but in this case 800. And you saw some of the Russian bases here, yeah. This is the place for the Russian raiders, and those couple of the drones, they did so good job out there targeting lots of the units. We'll see everything of that. So Nebau, that's the very sophisticated part of the Russian infrastructure or equipment, it's better to say. Like in a video game, right? So Neba-U, it's now stored, and you see, yeah, so drop is flying there, and we see some of the kaboom, yeah, it was damaged. The next is QRLS 55J6M Neba-M, also from the similar line of the Raiders, and let's watch this one. Yay, it was also kaboomed. One more Neba-M system, also in the store position. And here it goes with kaboom. So at least 3 of the Raiders were kaputted by 2 of the drones. A fantastic operation done by Ukrainian military intelligence. They're very, very capable. My friends, if you want to support the job that I do here on this channel daily, please follow me on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description just below. Or you may support me through membership on this YouTube channel. Just press join below. And my friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.